Okay, what we're setting up here is a quantum stockpile for our stone, so it'll all be stored in one spot, not be cluttered up all over the fortress. That's correct. The contact info basically tells me who you are, so if you want your dwarf named after you, you've got to tell me who you are. Otherwise, you could just be a viewer who just wanted to donate. And there's only so many dwarves I can name anonymous. So, let's look here. We've got our... what we've set up for our masons is a quantum stockpile in the making. We'll have 4 stockpiles here that will pick up stone from anywhere in the fort, and they'll feed into one stockpile that goes along here. This will set up to feed a minecart, and the minecart won't actually go anywhere. It'll just be programmed to dump as soon as it's full. And so it'll dump the stockpile over here. And so all of the stone will end up in this one square right here. And these stockpiles will keep pulling the whole time. So they'll keep pulling, and the rocks will just keep getting condensed and keep getting condensed and keep getting condensed, and everything will end up right here. This will allow us to focus the stone here in times where things are idle, and mean that our masons and our mechanics and our stone crafters are not having to go a long way to get to where the stone is. But we did order several wheelbarrows for these hauling routes, and we haven't told our carpenter to actually make any yet, so let's get started on that. Now for the range. For the range on this, you have to remember we have 4 stockpiles feeding in. Each one can hold 3 wheelbarrows, so we want at least 12 wheelbarrows for that stockpile. And then we have another stockpile that can itself take wheelbarrows, and so we need another 3 for it, so that's 15. We need haulers bad. I've got all these specialists and nobody to move the goods.
Can't do that there.
I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. If I need to increase it, I can. It's not a big deal. Typically, I only use wheelbarrows in stockpiles with stone. You can argue that you could make advantage of them with bins full of bars and blocks and weapons, for example, stuff that ends up being, heavy. But typically, I'm not as worried about those sorts of things. I don't haul them that often. So now our record keeper is starting to catch up with his duties, and you can see it now tracks the number of meat and drinks we have accurately because we changed his settings. So we can now tell exactly how much of all these different types of products we have. We don't yet know how much we have of everything. Some of these things, maybe we do. We may not have enough stones to get into the highest category yet. He's done enough precision at this point that we can tell we have, exactly how many stones we have in the fortress. So, go record keeper, man. So, let's see here. We've got some splints, crutches. There's the remains of the things that have been died somewhere. Something these been killed by who knows what down in the forest or down in the caverns, cave swallows. Well, looks like our ceramics person needs a job. Did I miss giving them one? Oh, needs sand. Well, we'll fix that in a moment. Okay, so we created the job for the discs, but we forgot to create a job to collect sand, so we eventually ran out. We need to collect sand, put that on repeat, and put that on the workflow limit to say we want at least a range of, oh, say 100 to 200 sandbags at any time. So that's as much sand as we'll collect. That keeps us from using up all the bags in our fortress, which is nice. You have a preference for which dwarf, what profession you want to be?
I can't do it.
Okay, you're our new hunter. Congratulations. The only people who work with bones in my fort are hunters. You won't do hunting forever. Eventually you'll just do bones. The problem is that I typically don't worry about those folks' moods. Bone carving isn't something I care if they're, finely carved bones aren't significantly more valuable than regularly carved bones. And our record keeper needs something to do, so let's go and get let's see, we need lye and tallow. Kitchen menu. Doesn't look like we've made any tallow yet. Okay, so let's get ourselves a cook. We'll be a cook instead of a hunter. The good news is if you turn out to be the guy who moods for bone carving, for example, I'll move you indoors and you'll just be a bone carver for life. No, as far as I know, the only way to manipulate moods to produce the more uncommon ones is literally making people more depressed. Fey moods are just normal moods, so you don't want to do anything special for those. But if you want the macabre moods or the fell moods, then yeah, you basically have to drive your dwarves into a deep depression and then hope they're the ones that get the artifact. Well, temporarily at least, our miners are going to do cooking duty. Hope you like rock dust with your roasts.
I can't do it.
Actually, I'm going to take you off hunting duty because you've got cooking. Okay, let's bring everything that we still have outdoors indoors if we haven't already, and think about how we want to start dispensing with the rest of this hallway. So here's how this hallway is going to work. The wagon will follow the wider 3-wide path.
Some more dwarfs here.
The 1-wide path that we have the bridge on will seal up when trouble comes. The 2-wide path will fill with traps. So, for example, if something comes roaming in, and it'll try to take the shorter path, and it'll run right into the traps. I'm also going to create some walls at the openings of the 2-wide here, and the 3-wide here, and the 3-wide here, to seal off this area entirely. And then we'll set up a way where we can pump it full of water and drain the water out the other side in order to facilitate drowning enemies that we don't want to deal with directly. Moods are fairly heavily hard-coded by Toady in terms of how they behave, as I understand it.
There's a dwarf that has been taken by a fey mood.
And our first artifact!
Craving of cheese on it. Is claimed a workshop. Cheese.
It's going to be a weapon. If who's gone into the mood. So we'll get a nice decoration for the dining room.
Ha! It's completed! I've made an amazing artifact! Ha ha ha!
And it's going straight into a weapon trap in the middle of the dining room. With 9 glass discs for value. And since we have those discs, let's start talking about surface defenses a little bit. Now remember, we only have one engineer at current, so we really kind of need to get some more. And since we don't have any people, this is where we re-enlist again somebody to do something beyond what they're normally doing. We're going to get our miners to do our mechanics work as well. Oh, did we get migrants? We did get migrants. Awesome, so we don't have to do that yet. We may have our things taken care of. Sort them by migration wave, make sure we've got them all red, grab all the dwarves, make them all haulers. Yay, our hauler shortage is taken care of. Sort them by profession, and see if anybody's eligible to get out of that job. Looks like you're eligible for the mining job, so you get just be a miner. And that's pretty much what we'll implement. Now let's go look at military and see if we got anybody skilled who came in. Well, we did get one axe dwarf. That's pretty much it. I don't use swords, so that's useless. I don't use maces, so that's useless. And we've got one hunter here, potentially here, so let's make that person a hunter too. Now, this is fairly heavy into food production, but at this point we've pretty well... Ooh, this person's a perfect engineer. We can do that too. And now that we've got enough haulers, we'll get all this wood indoors where it's safe for our carpenter to collect it. We've got extra engineers, so we'll get our couple of traps that we've got up front built a little faster. And now we have a stockpile for blocks, so we don't need this anymore.
I can't do it. There's nothing more to catch.
Oh yeah, the feeder, the chaining of stockpiles that he introduced in version 34 is by now essential. It's not necessarily obvious to a new player, but you really, 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 really need to learn it, because the amount of control it gives you is incredible. Things that you used to have to do specifically through workflow, for example, controlling materials, can now be done with stockpile manipulation. So, for example, you can set a stockpile up that only takes a particular type of stone, another one that takes a particular type of gem, and make sure that only that type of gem is encrusted on items that are made of that particular type of stone, for example. And you can force particular workshops to only produce from those stockpiles, thereby guaranteeing you can make an item of a particular material if desired, assuming you have access to the material. And we need to build a mine cart. We haven't done that yet. Oh, and I just realized we haven't set our orders. So in the orders menu, there's a few things we need to make sure that we're doing here. First off, activity zones. I want zone-only fishing, zone-only drinking. I'll let them know when I want them to fish and where I want them to drink, and I want them only doing it at that place. Workshop orders. I'll auto-loom dyed thread, but I don't necessarily want to use up all my thread. I want some thread reserved for the hospital. We turn off auto collect webs. I'll manually collect webs if I need to collect them for silk instead of trading for it. The rest of those things I do automatically. Refuse, we want to make sure we gather refuse from outside, otherwise our hunters probably haven't been collecting any meat. Dope. We want to make sure we're dumping skulls because I'm not going to use them, that we're dumping other because that's nervous tissue and other junk. Skins, shells, bones, and wool we want to keep because we'll reprocess those things into other items. We want to save corpses. Let's see, forbid menu. We want to forbid our dead and forbid our death items and forbid other non-hunted dead. And so basically this should look like this, because then we'll manually reclaim any of our people who die. We'll manually reclaim any of their items that die. We'll manually reclaim the enemy's items if they die. But I don't want my civilians charging out into the middle of a siege to try and loot socks. Yes, they might be very warm socks, but that doesn't mean that I want them charging into the middle of a goblin siege to do it. Let's see. Everything else I think is pretty well default in there.
Sorry, I can't do it, sir.
So now our haulers, now that we have a few more haulers, we can afford to trim a few more of these trees up here in the front end of the fort. Get a few more logs on the ground so that we have plenty more to collect. And at that point, we'll be pretty well set on wood for the foreseeable future. Now let's get some of these plants collected. In particular, I want to see if we can get some rope reed. We have a semi-skilled gatherer now. There's some rope reed there. We'll collect that if we can. It appears near the ponds and the river, so that's where I'm looking. There's some there. Rope reed is important to me as a trade commodity and as a better source of cloth than the default pigtails that you can embark with. Rope reed is a surface-only crop, so dwarves can't start with it, but it grows in all 4 seasons, so it can produce 2 extra crops per season per plot than pigtails, so it's far more productive overall. Okay, and that'll pretty well give us our luck, or not luck, with the rope reed on the map. And so we'll either get some or we won't. Let's let our gatherer go with that for a minute. I think we're ready to do a little more than we're doing in that respect. So we're going to eat up a few more haulers now. Check on our food. Food's still doing good. Drink's still doing good. Population growing. And now we'll flip the script on that room, seal it off, and open it up to the inside where it's now safe for our dwarves to get to it. Let's look through our stockpiles here, or our workshops here. We no longer need a carpenter's workshop, we no longer need the masons, the mechanics, the bowyer, the stills, the quern, the butcher, the tanner, the leatherworks, and the craftstores workshop. We've got all these downstairs, so we no longer need any of them. This will be our furniture stockpile. It's basically a dead end where all of our overproduced furniture will go. So if we want to upgrade or change it out, or we make an expansion, all of our furniture will be stored here. This will include barrels, bins, beds, the works. Anything that's not installed or not containing something will go there. Yeah, see, now we're getting to the point where we've got enough specialists running around that there's not enough jobs to keep everybody occupied at the same time. So now we need to be paying attention to what's going on. Smiths, textile workers, ceramics. The hunters don't have anything on the map to hunt. They probably don't have any bone bolt jobs. We've got a lot of idle workshops because I've only designated, for example, one craftsdwarf's workshop to do bolts. So this one is doing bolts, wooden bolts, and bone bolts if we have them, but nothing else is. So we go over here, we go add bolts, wood, bolts, repeat, add bone, bolts. Okay, and that'll get our hunters doing something useful. Let's make sure our carpenter's not tied up doing wood crafting by mistake and we're him doing carpentry.
Ach, no way.
Summer is upon us.
Our super happy dwarf is the guy that made the artifact. He's now a legendary weaponsmith. All the rest of you have just been demoted from weaponsmith duty. He doesn't have to do anything else. Okay, so how are we doing on iron bars? $163.
It won't work.
We have 6 happy ones now, actually. So this is our dwarves sorted by happiness. These guys are just at the average level. These folks are a little happier. Let's see why here. Legendary dining room, admired a building ×5, satisfied at work. This is probably because we just built that weapon trap in the middle of the dining room. Is probably ready, finally. Yep, I'd say that's probably done. So it's got an artifact sitting in it, so everybody who walks through the dining room basically sees that thing as they pass through it. This will have a significant impact on our happiness. Now, the happiness mechanics are probably going to change in the newest version with the way Toadie's changing the dwarf thoughts mechanism. So, making your dwarves happy may be an entirely different ball game than it is currently. But the mechanism at the moment is basically make nice things, put them where your dwarves can see them. Dwarves are happy, and you can literally override the worst tragedies in a dwarf's life if you have enough pretty stuff to look at. Golden statues that are masterwork, glass discs that are masterwork, artifacts dangling from the ceiling like disco balls. As much pretty stuff as you can get them to look at, the better. Some objects you're going to create don't work that way. Earrings and things that are jewelry, your dwarves don't actually take them and use them, so you don't get any benefit from them. Stuff you can build in traps or build furniture is awesome. Yeah, it just looks like this is the cause in this case, because we built this really awesome weapon trap here with an artifact mace sitting in the middle of it, surrounded by, incredibly valuable glass discs. some of whom are higher quality, but none of whom are standard quality, all of whom are at least somewhat better than standard. We'll repeat that process later once we start building more valuable things. Okay, let's see. We should have this linked now. Let's double check and make sure it works. If it opens that, then we're ready to turn on the water. Somebody will come along here in a minute and pull that lever. Any day now. Any day now. Tired of waiting. Alright, so now our floodgate works, which means we can now fill the well. We can build our grate over our fishing area so nobody accidentally falls in.
Sir, you can't do that there.
Actually, yes, there's an easy way to spot vampires. All of my other dwarves will have dined in a legendary dining room. Vampires will not. It usually means I don't find them until after they've eaten someone, but, you know, what are you going to do? See, you still run the same problem. He's already eaten somebody by the time you find him. There's no way other than meticulously scanning and monitoring every dwarf that comes in that you could possibly track them before they actually strike. And once our miner opens the tunnel up a little more, we'll punch it from above. Can't kill all the migrants, man. I need some cannon fodder for the army. Okay, and water flows in through the inflow pipe, down the long hallway, across, back up, and through the pressure regulator into the well. Notice that at the other side it starts to slow down dramatically and the flow doesn't flow through as much. That's intentional. It not only regulates the level to which the water will flood, it also controls flow a little bit. But slowly and surely the well will fill. We hope. Damn it, Dwarf Fortress. There you go, folks. Another bug. Rules of pressure destroyed. Put that back together before it, in case it changes its mind. I think we're going to have to dig a second well. God damn it. Trying to think about how to do this. If you're really going to go through the effort of having them spotted in that way, you're probably better off to consider doing it as fortifications so that they can actually see through the walls as well. At that point, you're not worried about the value of the rooms. I see a roaming animal that should be in a pen. Well, we're going to try something and see if it fixes our issue. If it does, it's likely that we'll have to put on our taken off caps, because whoever pulls this trick off is probably not going to survive the execution. Alright, who's idling here? Miners, gatherers, kitchen workers, smiths. Alright, let's get the textile guys doing their thing here. Alright, that gets our clothiers busy doing all the cloth work. But remember, that's on automation, so if they run out of materials or whatever, they'll stop. Our ceramics worker has stopped. We need to figure out why. Let's take a look at their workshop. Looks like no sandbags. Pretty sure we created a sand stock or sand zone up top, didn't we? Yes, we did. But there's no empty bags anywhere in the stockpile, is there? Oh, there are empty bags, but nobody's collecting the sand. That's interesting. Wondering if one of the hauling labors has been changed since I last did this. Truthfully, though, I've done it, and I still ended up with cases where the vampire would get away with it because the room was just too removed. We just don't have enough people supporting ceramics.
Let's start digging some more holes in the ground, Olin.
So we'll do the same thing with them that we did with masons. We'll have people who are unskilled collecting sand and people who are skilled making stuff. Here comes our migration wave, and this will include our first military, whether they are skilled or not. Alright, there might have been 3 people in that whole wave. Wow. Get our animals assigned. Nope, Bone Carver stays on repeat. We probably don't have any bolts to speak of anyway. Let me look, but I'll bet we're probably out anyway. Nope, we've got plenty. Which is good, because we're going to go through them. Our 2 hunters are about to be drafted. So those of you who are wanting to see military creation, here's how it's going to work. I'm going to create a squad from scratch. I'm going to assign my hunters to it because I'm going to have them train without actually doing any hunting. They're just going to burn bolts into the targets. And it's not the bones probably that are causing our ammunition to be that high. It's probably the wood bolts that are doing that. So our militia leader here is going to be one of our 2 hunters. Let's see, let's find them here. There's one, and then the other. Now, neither of these are really going to be doing anything military, but drafting them is a convenient way to get them started on training. Okay? I'm going to set their equipment, and instead of individual choice ranged, we're going to add a weapon which will be crossbows. I don't want them using bows if they have any. I don't care if they're exact matches, I'll take partials. So we're going to get rid of a few things here and then add armor. And we'll do, I don't care what sort of armor it is. Shirts. Legs. We'll do, I don't know if this would be a breastplate. Legs. We'll do greaves. Helm. We do helms. Gloves. We do gauntlets. Boots. We do high boots. Shields. We do shields. Weapon we've already assigned. Material. Ideally, we want them in steel, but we'll take partial matches, so we'll also take iron and bronze and whatever's available. So again, we do material, we do steel, we go down to here, we do material, we do steel. Oops, I did it backwards. We do it in uniforms, not under equipment. That's why it's not there. Okay, so let's name this uniform. Thought that behaved weird. Now I've assigned that uniform that I created to each one. Looks pretty identical to me. Dude, I don't want to be the one to tell you this, but you're not in the military. Somebody get the eyeball polish. Alright, so now we've got our hunters assigned into a squad, and I want to take them off hunting duty, and the reason is because, unless Tony's fixed it, which I doubt, there's a bug where hunting interferes with the military uniform. And so while we've got them, they're not going to actually really be doing any hunting, they're just going to be doing their military training duties. So we set all of the individual barracks to train. Let them train in the melee barracks if they want to. Now we have to set up their schedule. And the way this is going to work is we get rid of this order. And then we give them a new order. And the new order is train, but we only want one guy minimum. And then we do that again. Give order. Train. One guy minimum. We do that 10 times. So we have 10 of those train, 1 minimum orders. That's what we want here. And now we've got our 10.
I can't do it.
No, man, it's just somebody has a name close to yours, that's all. It's at this moment I want to take an opportunity to call attention to some guides that have been posted recently in the Dwarf Fortress subreddit. We'll start here with Mechanixum's archery training primer. So it has pictures on how he's built his training targets. You'll notice that this is very similar to how we've built ours, only we've built separate lanes for ours rather than individual, rather than having them in a block. We've assigned crossbows, we've set ammunition, we've created water skins and set up quivers. We've got crossbows and bolts. We've set our squad training schedule to have the minimum training orders. We've set the squad. We haven't set the squad to active yet. They'll get their equipment and go to the training room. This method is basically exactly what you're seeing here. If you want to see it in text so you can follow along step by step, that'd be where I would go. So let's talk about alerts for a minute. We've set the amount of ammunition for our squad. We created a squad with the positions. We created the amount of ammunition it could have, the amount of food and drink it could carry. We created a uniform which we assigned to it as equipment. Now we're down to alerts. Schedules will tell you what your dwarves will be doing normally just based on what they're doing. However, it does require that you have an alert set. So if you look in the schedule, this schedule is the active and training schedule. So if my squad is set to active and training, they're going to train. But if I change which alert they're under the inactive alert, they don't have any scheduled orders at all, so they'll do whatever they feel like. They may be hauling, they may be moving stuff, they may be training on their own, but they're not guaranteed to be doing what I want them to do, which is train. So we'll need to make sure that they're in the training mode. Now, what I generally do is I rename this alert first. And then I usually create a few extra alerts. And if I need them, I'll have them. Red alert will be what we'll use when we want the civilians to be indoors, or we want to take our battle stations at the gate, for example. But training will be where our hunter squad is going to be set to, and they will go and train. They'll actually be drafted into the military, and suddenly they'll be required to do their job. So Sazir and Kubuk have just become militia dwarves. They'll gather their equipment and go train. Now, because I've got the melee barracks set on, you'll see, for example, this guy's going to archery practice. This guy's filling his water skin. And there's our two militia dwarves. And there he goes. He's firing bolts and getting better at archery. So, 1,300 bolts and 2 guys to go through it. That'll keep him supplied for a while. And occasionally they'll decide to do demonstrations instead of training. But that'll let them train at this point. I can just let them go. Okay, currently idle are our ceramics workers, our engineers, at least some of our smiths. Looks like the ceramics jobs are just backing up left, right, and center. So let's go downstairs and talk about how we're going to get bags out of all of this. Remember, we make those cloth working workshops. We haven't done anything with them yet. Time to get that fixed. So first thing on my list is to make sure that I have cloth robes, trousers, shoes. This is the bare minimum you need for your dwarves. Something for their chest, something for their legs, something for their feet. Those 3 places need to be covered. And you'll want to put them on repeat so that you have plenty. And you'll want to set the limit up a bit because you're going to have to make a lot of these to keep your dwarves clothed. Not essential, but nice would be things like helmets to cover their head. You can make them a cloth hood, for example. You could give them cloth cloaks. You could give them gloves. But to start, while our cloth supplies are low, I'm just going to build up some clothing they need. We'll worry about the nice stuff later. And in addition to clothing, the other thing we're going to want are bags. So cloth bags on repeat, and we'll make sure we have plenty of them. Alright, so we've got our dwarves training, we've got our cloth guys producing clothing, we'll get some extra bags made for our sand. Pretty solid so far. Let's go ahead and designate our underground burrow. burrows control where jobs dwarves can take are allowed. So, for example, if I add my civilians to that burrow, they can only do jobs that are contained inside the burrow. If something is outside the burrow or needs to go outside the burrow, they won't do it. They won't even attempt it. They'll spam me a Krabbygram letting me know, but they won't do it. Time to start opening up bedrooms.
A dwarf has gotten an idea and has
I
withdrawn
claim
from
this
society.
workshop in the name of invention!
We're gonna get a mechanism. That's going in another weapon trap in the dining room. Hey guys. Now I'm going to take a moment here and I'm going to have to step AFK for a few minutes while I get something to eat. I do want to take a moment here to kind of pause and kind of talk about what we're doing. Since this is all intended for a charity, if you'll notice below the video here, if you scroll down, you're going to catch a link to the Extra Life charity drive, which is what I'm doing this for today. Since I'm broadcasting 24 hours of Dwarf Fortress contiguously, I'd really like to take an opportunity to kind of solicit your donations. All of it goes to a local children's hospital here in my state. None of the donations are collected by me whatsoever. It's purely for the kids. So if you like what we're doing here, if you want to, support this, the easiest way you can do it is actually just donate to the charity and not to me. We're probably going to go AFK here for now to 5-10 minutes while I get something cooked real fast and wolf it down, and then I'll come right back to where we are here. Before I take off, that's right, if you donate and you let me know who you are, if you identify yourself so that I can identify you across to the stream, I'll dwarf you. You'll become a dwarf in my fortress. Several of the folks here have done it before. So give it a moment, and we're going to go AFK for a second. Give it 10 minutes, and I'll be right back. We're actually going to see if we can get creative with the well. I'm going to see if I can fix it. I'll probably just get a dwarf killed, but you never know. No, it's a bug with pressure. The way pressure is supposed to work, the water should be coming in from here and trying to get back to the level it started at. Well, it started at like level 1. Well, it's down like level -12 here, so it should be, pumping out of that hole in the ground with the grate over it non-stop, but it's not. It just stopped at this level, and there's no reason for it to have done so. Well, there's probably no history because our world is only like 2 years old. The founding of our fortress was like a major event. I don't want to build the well until I can get this fixed. Oh good, there's a door. Now it's time to try our stunt and see if this works. Alright, so to make this work, we're going to temporarily disable all our important miners. So now we have one miner in the fort. And he's on break, so we're in good shape there. Alright, let's see where everybody else was digging, so I know where I'm going to be canceling my jobs at. Oh, they're hollowing out the bedroom. Well, let's give them a minute before I do this, then let's finish that.
I can't do it. I just can't.
At last, I finished the artifact. Oh, it's beautiful. I'll name you after my mother.
Alright. Let's do some organizing here. We can get our dogs organized. Yeah, see, things like that, unless you force somebody to equip it, they're probably not going to wear it. Aha! We managed to get some rope reeds. That's what I wanted to get. Perfect. Time to start our secret farming project here. By now we should have plenty of stone blocks. Still works. Why wouldn't I? It's not bridges, I'm using floors, but yes. Yep, that's exactly what we're doing here. This farm will effectively be above ground, even though it's actually going to end up inside. Once it's walled in, it'll be perfectly safe, and we can use it to plant rope reeds year-round. And Toady will fix it someday. But until he fixes it, we're going to use it. And so someone was asking about the lights. You'll notice that this area that's already been covered over is still marked as being light and above ground. I think cave adaptation actually requires this one, though, outside versus inside. See, I could be doing it in glass, I'm just not. We could be making glass blocks instead of glass discs. Alright, so we link this to the outer bridge. This needs to be for the inner bridge. Dwarves will not typically trigger weapon traps. There are exceptions, and the exceptions are very simple. Any dwarf who passes out on a weapon trap or is immobilized on a weapon trap is treated as though they are not a dwarf. Any dwarf who is berserk is treated as though they are not a dwarf. So webs, as is being mentioned on the channel, will immobilize a dwarf. A dwarf who's immobilized in the weapon trap is going to get vivisected. Likewise, a dwarf who's just really, really tired and passes out on a weapon trap, well, oops. Yeah, I suspect bridges are the best bet for future compatibility. Floors are just easy and quick to designate, so I just did it. They actually take more work to construct. Yeah, passing out from exhaustion is a no-no. That's incredibly dangerous. Yeah, you can, but for some reason when we did it today, it's not working the way it's supposed to. Due to some sort of bug, I'm assuming, because I don't know otherwise why it would fail, it isn't flooding up out of the grate. A grate is hollow. Grate is not going to block it. So it like flooded for like 2 seconds and then stopped. And it just sort of dribbled into the well. So we have some water down there at the bottom, but not enough for a real well. So what I'm going to try and do is drill a hole behind it and get it so it's get in behind it and then tell the dwarf to run for it.
Autumn is upon us.
And if he does it right, he'll run up the stairs and the water will flood up behind him, but it won't actually get him because at the top of the well there's actually a door that he can walk right out of.
I do think I can do this.
See, now that should have given us a hole all the way down. That should have been a mistake right there, but it didn't work.
I can't do that there.
See, this should be flooding like mad. Let's tinker with the entrance. We won't actually fish out of the well. We'll fish out of a small channel I dug off the side, but yes. See, and now it's going again. What the hell? There. That's what I was trying to do all along. All of a sudden it's going again. That works. We'll take it. Now I'll just wall this door up. See, and now it's draining back down again. That's the weird
makes you think I can do this?
But it looks like it's keeping it at least one level higher than it was before, so we've gotten the well almost full this time. It's bizarre. Well, that's enough water to actually build a well anyway. We can worry about filling it up and figuring out how to fix this in a minute. So, when you make a well, you want to consider the value of the ingredients because the well is actually going to be a room unto its own. So, let's look and see what we've got here. Well, we've got some basic rock blocks, not particularly valuable. We have some buckets, all made of wood. A little higher quality in some cases, but not particularly good. We've got some ropes that we imported that are decorated really nice, so that's a little better than nothing. But this is really not the best materials we could be using, so let's go build what we need. First, we'll make some gold blocks. If we don't already have some gold, we'll need to smelt some. I'm not sure if we actually did any. I haven't looked, so we'll see. Other objects. Gold. Nope, not there. It's under furniture. Oops. Gold blocks. There we are. Gold blocks. And then we'll make ourselves a gold bucket. And a gold chain. I don't think you can make a gold mechanism. But if we can get it to work, then we might move the well. We might move our artifact mechanism into the well if we can get the best components for it later on. So we'll make gold blocks, gold bucket, and gold chain, and that'll get us a nice basic well started. And here comes a caravan, and it's early autumn, so this is dwarves.